This is Spirit Gym. Today, Paul is talking with Mary Buckingham. Mary works on a multidimensional level with the intention of harmonizing individuals with their true self, their unique energetic signature. She specializes in a variety of skills that include extrasensory perceiving, psychic abilities, nonverbal communication, interdimensional communication, as well as accessing of information from the Universal Library. Thank you for listening to this podcast, which would not be possible without you, our subscribers, and also our premier sponsors, Wild Pastures, Paleo Valley, Organifi, and Bioptimizers. The sponsors' special offers and discounts are mentioned throughout this episode, or you can visit the show notes page at paulchek.com/podcast. Today, Paul and Mary are talking about exploring the human spirit self.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Spirit Gym with Paul Chek. Today, our title is Exploring the Human Spirit Self with an amazing woman, Mary Buckingham, who I learned about from my buddy, Mike Gonzalez, the founder of Freedom Builders, who built my amazing Spirit Gym program, and one of my buddies. And he said, Paul, you need to meet Mary. She's amazing. She's awesome. I did her course, and she's really somebody that very much in line with you. So I got to meet Mary and spend some time with her and learn about what she offers and her amazing skills and abilities. And I thought she'd make a great guest on my podcast because she's got a lot of cool stuff to share with all of you. So Mary, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. Welcome back to the rainbow.
I know, it's nice to be back. I feel like you've been in my orbit, my spiritual orbit for a few years before I finally got to meet you. So it's really nice to be here.
Yeah. Mary was just at our annual New Year's Mandala workshop. She got to see me cry a lot.
Me too.
And you cried too.
I cried too.
I think everybody cried.
Yeah.
It was probably the most emotional Mandala workshop of all of them, which was good. I had a number of women say this was quite a special experience because this was the first time it was the men that were showing their emotions. And I thought, I never thought about that, but I guess it was true.
Yeah, it was equal. Everybody was totally in it. It was powerful.
It was powerful. It was powerful for me too. Mary, you have shared with me previously how you developed your abilities as a spiritual guide and healer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an interesting story. So why don't you give us a bit of a biographical overview of your development?
Usually when I get asked this question, I always go back to when I was really young because I feel a lot of this process has been about the reclamation of that aspect of myself, the youthful, the child self. As far back as I can remember, I was really kind of in tune with the spirit realm. Particularly, I do recall ages 4 to 5, like literally, it's like you could call it realm walking or interdimensional communication. And like I had imaginary friends. There's this story my mom has told where in preschool, there was a person named Rory that I would constantly mention. And so finally one day when she was at the school, she asked one of the teachers, who's Mary's friend Rory that she's always talking about? And the teacher just looked at her and was like, there's no Rory here. I also was very artistic, imaginative, creative. I had pieces of things that I would write at probably around ages 8 and 9, especially, that were coming from somewhere else. But this is right around the time too where sports came into my life.
Oh, good.
For highly competitive athletes in Southern California who compete in volleyball, you start at around age 8 or 9. So it was right at that time that kind of that artistic, creative expression, I would say, got overridden by athletics because it became a year-round thing. And that career lasted for 15 years.
Wow.
So I played Division I. I only played for a year. But that was right around the time I would say I started to struggle. I started to feel deep pain coming from, I think, the soul level. I think there's the earthly stuff, and then there's just this pain that it was hard to carry when you're also trying to have a very active athletic career. Once you go on to college and play Division I, it's what you live, breathe, eat, sleep. So I had already been doing that for so long. I was completely burnt out. By the time I got there, I was already retired in my mind. So for any of the astrologers, I'm not an astrologist, but in 2008, Pluto entered Capricorn. So, and Pluto just went into Aquarius. So in 2008, that kind of is in line with that age where I started to experience what I've connected to, that astrological transit, which for those who know, when Pluto entered Capricorn, that was about, authority, deep transformation. And we can all reflect on that period of time, what's gone on since 2008 on the macro. And then for me, the micro, it was deep transformation.
That was the year of the stock market crash, which I will never forget. Caused me to have to work extremely hard for a couple of years.
Yeah. And then just a lot of our authority systems, whether you talk again individually or on a larger basis. So I never had an issue with authority. I would say, if anything, we have the two polar ends of like rebelling or submitting. And I was very much a good girl when it came to my relationship with my coaches, my teachers. But I think an inner part of me, this free aspect of ourselves, it started to become alive, and it didn't feel good being so constricted, so rigid or in control. I would say that was when my awakening really started. And then there's been these big chunks of transformative periods where it was, as I look in hindsight, the soul awakening and kind of entering, you could say, the dark night over a slow extended period. And then it got pretty disruptive a little bit more as my awareness started to heighten. So there was a period of time where these, quote unquote abilities, whatever people want to call it, enhanced intuition, psychic, extrasensory, turned on overnight. So it's like we had Mary as one person here. And then it was like the next day I was receiving just downloads and dumps of quantum information. Again, in hindsight, I now kind of know what it was. But at the time, anyone who's gone through this, you start to think, is there something wrong with me? Am I losing my mind? Like what is all of this that I'm perceiving, that I'm seeing? It kind of created this experience of, okay, everything that I know and that I've learned through these external systems is not true to this aspect that I'm aligning with, that I'm waking up to. And, with the unconscious aspects of self that were kind of rearing their head into my face, it was like I had to start reckoning with these aspects of my shadow self and learning how to, first of all, understand what's going on. Why am I feeling so much heaviness? Why am I seeing so much beyond the veil, hearing, feeling? Why am I tuning into like a collective energy? So a lot of my process and anything that I learn or teach comes from literal direct experience and reverse engineering what kind of dumped upon me. And then learning how to live with it, meaning live with a heightened sense of awareness and seeing beyond what the third dimension shows us, this third dimensional illusory reality. So that's kind of the overview of why I'm sitting here today.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like you navigated a transformation process, a morphogenesis that happens to a lot of people that end up on psychotropic drugs from psychiatrists and psychologists and in nut houses and feeling like something's wrong with them. A good example is a lot of people get diagnosed with multiple personality disorder, but you were able to navigate it. I had a strong intuition while you were talking, and the vision I had was that the little girl in you, Rory's friend, couldn't handle being in the basement anymore because she knew that the athlete wasn't really who you came to be. So finally she just said, "You must let me live in you." And so I think maybe this is just my own intuitive sense that she knew you had work to do and that you needed her gifts in order to fulfill your soul path. That's kind of what I sense inside.
Absolutely. And I think I was really good at masking the struggle. So I empathize for people that, I never really completely lost control. Like I always was really maintained, but I did feel at times like I was living a double life, especially, because when I went to Berkeley and then I went immediately to get my master's at USC, and I was well into this awakening by the time I got to my master's program, where I was just like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. What I'm applying myself on earth to do has nothing to do with what's awakening inside of me. But with the programming and indoctrination and all that stuff that we experience on a societal level, I was still really struggling to let that grip go.
Yes. You have to, sorry to interject, but that's the birth of the warrior archetype, where you've got to really establish, who am I? What is my values? What is my vision? That's the budding. That's a very big step in the individuation process, because that's where you go through the struggle of realizing who you are and what is it that you want, feel, and need, and what is freedom to you? What is your path? It's a very hard thing for people to do, because there's so much indoctrination in the world, from religion to education to corporate organizations to isms to military. When you look at how much of a pressure cooker has been created around people to stop them from becoming free agents of conscious thinking, culture creates this very rigid cocoon. But the pressure of the soul, especially someone like you who's probably an older soul and has gifts to bring, can suffocate in that. And if they're not supported, or they don't have the inner strength to stand on their own and be different and really step into themselves at any cost, then the side effect is some kind of diagnosis, illness, injury, or often addiction.
Absolutely. I mean, 100%. And I think my dad used to always say to me, oh gosh, it's going to make me emotional.
It's all right to be emotional.
I warned Paul before this. Tears are going to come. He used to just always look at me and just be like, I wish you could see what I see.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have coaches tell me, like, get out of your fucking head, like pull my jersey, like, and
sounds familiar.
Kind of like the more, yeah, like they would just be like, what is wrong with you? Like, just get out there. It's just, what is it? Yeah, just do it. And so I always had that messaging coming my way. And I think people outside of you can tell you that, but until you realize that within yourself, you really have to arrive at that within yourself. So yeah, it was like I was finding the juxtaposition of what was happening and awakening inside was so stark that I was like, this isn't, I can't carry this distance between the two anymore, because it's gonna be too much.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom's a very artistic person. And so there was grounding, like it wasn't like it just came from nowhere, but it was like I had to really go inward, because again, I was finding that everything I was learning, jobs I was working, were completely just opposing forces to what I was tuning into. And I talk about this a lot, how I felt that I was like a salmon swimming upstream. It's like my scales were bleeding. And I needed to start to turn into the driftwood that would gently just float down the river. But the process of going from a salmon fighting upstream, scales bleeding, to like the driftwood is, it's like,
it can create an identity crisis too, because if you become so recognized by others, for example, as an athlete, and you're, pursuing academic education, but the soul of you is saying, hey, you're going in the wrong direction, it's that's the crisis of the child becoming the warrior, where you have to depart from what ultimately other people want to see you be and what your heart and soul are saying. Hey, wait a minute. You're moving in the wrong direction, but we're glad you're fit.
Totally. And the insanity that it could start to cause when you're fighting this real aspect within. When I started to release from programming, conditioning, feeling like I had to be this way, look this way, work this job, do this job because of the education that I had, it created more resistance because I was like, well, I have this education under my belt. Like, shouldn't I be working certain types of jobs that would pay this much a year? And I look a certain way. Like, you have this whole external package, but it was completely irrelevant to what was becoming true.
It's called a persona.
Yeah.
That's an interesting process you've been through. I think a lot more people in the world go through and are going through that process than most people realize. Have you ever seen the book Vibrational Medicine by Richard Gerber, MD?
I feel like I've heard of that.
It's a real powerful book. It's probably came out in early 2000s. It was very well done, and he was a very tapped-in medical doctor. But the book's really about the plethora of patients he had to work with that had Kundalini rising that nobody knew what to do with. Because as our culture got more and more into yoga, for example, it was triggering a lot of Kundalini rising, and it put a lot of people in the nut house. But Richard Gerber did something quite phenomenal. He actually had worked with so many of these people, he was able to map out exactly the pattern of Kundalini rising. And he showed something quite mind-blowing. It follows the homunculus. Do you know what the homunculus is? It's a sensory map of the human body. You've probably seen it. Looks like a little man with great big hands and great big lips.
Yeah, like the meridian map.
Well, it's a map of the sensory systems of the body. So where there's the largest population of sensory neurons, they draw that part bigger. So we have a lot around our lips and our hands. And so you see this kind of strange looking body, but it's the homunculus. But he showed that the Kundalini follows exactly this embryologic map. So as the body develops and grows, how our sensory systems evolve, and that wherever a person has unresolved issues, they'll have blockages there. So the Kundalini will literally start vibrating there and shake those parts loose. And I've had to go through this with countless of my students that I teach Tai Chi to. And one exercise called the Tai Chi ruler seems to be the most profound at making this happen. I've literally had people go into chi shock on their first session and be coming off the ground in epileptic-like seizures because they're blocked so heavily, and it's just their soul wants them to open. So when people get in the presence of somebody like me that knows how to handle it, then the soul lets it go.
Yes.
But the point being is that what you're describing is a lot more common than people realize, and most people don't know what to do about it, how to handle it, and how to make the differentiation between what seems like a pathology and the budding of gifts, psychic capacities, and spiritual abilities. And if they're not handled by somebody like you that's walked this path, then they get very, very lost. And, as I alluded to earlier, they can become drug addicts, misfits, homeless people, or they revert back into their prior existence of conformity in the child archetype. And then they end up suffering usually either diseases or illnesses because they're the only way the soul can dissipate the psychic energy, or they get sick, or they just have a very uncomfortable dark night of the soul. And that leads to a lot of problems in relationships and self-confidence, and it can really mess a person's life up. And I've worked with, as you can imagine, many, many cases like that, because psychedelics will do the same thing. So what could take you 3 or 4 or 5 years of consistent yoga practice to do, one shamanic journey can do.
Yeah.
If the person's kind of like Humpty Dumpty sitting on the edge of a spiritual awakening, but repressing it, the psychedelics are like dynamite. They'll just blow you right through it.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear how all this has brought you to your own spirituality or spiritual philosophy. How would you exemplify your relationship to source, to spirit, to soul, to life? Who's Mary from a spiritual perspective?
Key statement, know thyself, as above, so below. We are light that has descended into matter, and our soul has selected to be in these bodily vessels. And we are receivers and transmitters of frequency. And as I, have evolved in my journey, I realized my, area of focus or specialty is frequency calibration. So when you become attuned to the subtle realm, you become sensitive to frequency. And then, like all the great ones have said, everything's sound, vibration, frequency. And it's the truth. It's when you tune into people, there's, especially at the soul level, the soul is the frequency that is beyond what they're projecting at the mental, emotional. It's a part of it, but our soul is the thing that is eternal. It has all of the memory and the imprints. And usually when connecting with people on a frequency level, you can literally learn how to tune your body, which is what my program serves to help people understand and understand the mechanics of our physical container in connection to these energetic centers. I don't use the term chakras. I refer to them as receptor centers, because when my clairaudience turned on, I started to kind of receive terminology within the self. So I think these things and these teachings and these ancient texts are super helpful, but I have found personally, as I've gone through my journey, that the more I just listen to what it is and what it's telling me they are, I've just gone with that.
Mhm.
And it's always in line with what's already been taught with regard to these ancient teachings. There's a lot of talk about ascension, and I'm finding myself kind of aligning with helping people in their ascension process. So ascension being the soul awakening. So the soul returning back to its true essence, its true nature, being God, source, universe, whatever you want to call it. And as we do that, just as you were mentioning, it has to move through these blocks. And when you understand the mechanics of your body and these energetic centers, you can have a smoother process. It can be less difficult. There can be less suffering when you start to just understand how your body and your spirit work together. And I think when it comes to the quantum field, people refer to it as the Akashic records or the universal library. You can tune into that space, and that's where a lot of the information reception comes from. Data reception, data meaning if you're working with a client, you can literally start to tune into frequency of what their bodily system, their human energy field, their biofield is communicating beyond what their human self may be thinking or saying.
Mm-hmm.
Having to understand that we have our human energy field has several subtle layers, and we
Yes.
have the mental, emotional, spiritual components of it. And through frequency, people do communicate non-verbally through the mental body, the emotional body, the physical body. And that's where, quantum entanglement, telepathy, nonverbal communication come in. And again, I like to go back to frequency calibration. So you can think about sessions. So when I work with people, it's less about giving them any information that they can find within themselves. It's more about a frequency recalibration, a realignment of these frequency fields that are meant to function in a coherent pattern.
Are you doing this? How are you making the adjustments to the frequencies?
It's less about me doing anything. It's more about what I hear is what they're non-verbally communicating, and I simply just mirror that back.
Mm-hmm.
And their awareness kind of locks in on that, and whatever their awareness, their higher self does with that kind of takes them on their own journey. When I talk about the supernatural abilities that people have, we all have them. It's
Mm-hmm.
just it's on a range, it's on a spectrum.
Yeah.
And what that means too is there's a spectrum of these abilities. Like, I think in the mainstream, people are becoming more informed of this stuff, but it's beyond just a psychic connection. It's beyond an Akashic reading or anything like that. But if I am receiving imprints from maybe something from a past life, let's say, I'm not going in on that, on what I'm seeing like a movie, but I speak to the essence of it so that they can hear it themselves, what they are communicating non-verbally.
You mean you're communicating to them telepathically?
More so like I'm painting a picture of what I'm seeing, but I'm not giving them such specifics because it's more important for the person to attune to it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it's through words. And there's a woman who created the Akashic Academy. She's like a OG in the space. Through the words and Akashic readings, people get activated. But I don't call what I do Akashic sessions or psychic or any of that, but it's part of the toolkit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important too, because what I found even through my own experience of awakening, so much of the jargon and the terminology that's used out there is very generalized and it's watered down.
Yeah.
And then it's misunderstood because people aren't getting into the nuance of these things. And that's what I believe is because the subtle frequency it's a specific mathematic. There's specific geometry that our universe is built upon. And, math was not my subject. But as I've directly received higher dimensional information, I've continued to learn and directly experience that our universe is mathematic and perfect and geometric.
That's one aspect of it.
Yes.
As I've had to say to many that are stuck in that mindset, I remind them that God is a poet, God is a musician, God is an artist, and God is the greatest storyteller of all. And so the geometry is sort of like the bones of your body. But then the poetry, the dance, the music, and the song moves the bones. The bones give you a body with a structure, but the rest of the spirit moves through each of us in a way that is unique to that soul, like you're Mary Buckingham. And so how spirit works through you to help other people is the way that spirit works through you and you alone. So there's geometry to Mary, but there's also poetry, there's also art, there's music, there's storytelling, there's eye contact, there's, something unique about you that only you can deliver.
It's interesting you mentioned eye contact.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've experienced this with your own abilities and seeing through the veil, but I felt like as with the soul awakening journey, we have these energetic centers that are also connected with certain platonic solids. And as they move up the ladder, they refine in their capacity and how they form in a geometric pattern.
Yeah. The yogis map that out. That's why you see those geometrical symbols in the chakra diagrams.
Yes. The eyes, usually when I connect with people, there's so much information in their eyes.
That's why they say the eyes are the window to the soul.
Yes. And I had to look into why I was receiving so much through the eyes, or why there was so much energy when connecting through eye contact with people. And this kind of connects with the aspect of us being not only receivers, but we are also transmitters, and we also are transducers. And our eyes emit subtle energy. They emit biophotons. Biophotons interact with the electromagnetic field. And our electromagnetic field, the electromagnetic waves, they decay over distance, whereas scalar waves don't. And so I had to start learning things a little bit more in the space of quantum mechanics, because it was like, again, a lot of the jargon and the languaging was so, it just felt like there was stuff missing or information not there. So with regard to scalar waves, they exist in that 0 point space.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, we'll talk about ether at some point, but I guess we've arrived here now, which is that the ether, it's the substrate of these different waves of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I started to try to understand, okay, because when I'm seeing things through the clairvoyance, it's in many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the concept of the inner screen, which the Tibetan monks talk about, and they have been mastering the meditation of the inner screen, which is what your third eye projects onto. And this also connects with the concept of the holographic universe.
I was just going to say the screen concept to me is a little bit outdated as an analogy because God's really as David Bohm called it, a hollow movement, which Spirit Jim goes very deep into that. But have you studied Tantra at all?
Not much.
Do you know what the Nada Bindu point is? Nada means sound, Bindu means seed, and a point is a zero dimension reality that is but isn't simultaneously. So from a kind of a mix of quantum physics, my own soul's direction, and Tantra, each of us is the product of God dreaming itself into existence in a very unique mode of expression that, as I said earlier, only Mary can bring what Mary came to bring. But you, according to Cantor's mathematics, infinity mathematics, a line of any distance has an infinite number of points. So literally, if you just put a dot on the page with a pen, there's an infinite number of points. So the point is the transition from the wave dimension of the spirit world to the physical dimension. So when you start looking at subatomic particles like quarks, gluons, electrons, so look at a photon. Isn't it a miracle that all mass, matter, is photons entangled that are moving at just under the speed of light, but they create the illusion of solidity, but a photon has zero mass. So there you see the Nada Bindu point is the transition point at which the no thing of God, the emptiness of God, Shakti, the womb, intelligent energy, manifests as information, but God's dream, the flow of spirit information, comes into formation, and there's your geometry. So the geometry is the foundation of the dream, which creates the matrix within which the hollow movement takes place. So just like we look at a plasma screen television, which has pixels made of plasma that illuminate the image, if you now take that into any dimensional model you want, but we're familiar with 4D linked with depth and time, what looks to us to be solid and fixed, like if you build a house, it seems like you're building the house, you're digging the trench and all that. But just like a movie unfolds, you could watch a movie of a house being built. But if the movie is in 4D and you're in it, then you don't realize that you're actually God dreaming itself into existence in real time. Point being, not a sound. The sound Om is what happens when God looks into itself. That's the master symbol of all sound, and sound in metaphysics and in yoga includes all frequencies, not just audible frequencies. So if you study, for example, Inyat Khan's teachings on Sufism, Sufis use the term sound to encapsulate all frequencies. So anything that God dreams falls into the category of sound. Nada Bindu point is the point at which the flow of spirit produces sound that organizes matter, just as you see in cymatics, where you put frequency under a metal plate, like stroke it with a violin bow, and you get geometrical forms. So the Nada Bindu point really is the point at which the dream manifests, and the ether is the stem cell through which the Nada Bindu points cause differentiation. So just like a stem cell in your body can become eyes, ears, nose, teeth, fingernails, hair, bone, liver, tissue, the nada bindu through the ether carries the sound, which creates the image and the form, and the ether then takes the shape that gives the basis for that structure. So that's the spirit gym conception, but it's really very much in line with what you're saying, just using different words. Hello, my fellow spiritual warriors and world workers. I hope you're enjoying this podcast as much as I am. It is no secret that today we are not only bombarded with so-called health and fitness information from every angle, be it social media, TV, podcasts, etc., but clearly it's not working. Many studies conducted worldwide show that children, teens, adults, and the elderly are the most unhealthy, overweight, and the sickest they've ever been. But it does not have to be that way for you. When I wrote my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, I researched the number of diet books available at that time, and there were over 5,000 of them, each claiming to have the right diet for anyone and everyone. But the reason I wrote How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy was because these books all overlook the fact that no two people are the same, and therefore no two people are likely to get good results on the same diet. That's simply fact. Another reason the myriad of diet approaches available today fail so often is that they don't look at the underlying causes that lead to body health and mental emotional challenges. They treat the human being as though it were a machine, and all you need to do is add this liquid or that supplement, and presto, the machine runs again. These issues are more important than ever considering the physiological, mental, emotional, environmental stress and toxicity in the world today. Today, it is critical to learn the essentials of how to eat, hydrate, breathe, cultivate life force energy, and use your mind to create the life you've always wanted to live. This is exactly what you will learn in our upcoming Holistic Lifestyle Coach Level 1 training program, live with my wife and master instructor, Angie Chek. This workshop is designed for anyone that genuinely wants to be healthy and is ideal for fitness enthusiasts, athletes, and parents. It's also a great chance to explore and see if you want to move into our Holistic Lifestyle Coach Level 2, which is our professional level training, and pursue a career as a holistic lifestyle coach today when it is so desperately needed. Not only will you be taught by Angie Chek, one of the most knowledgeable experts in holistic health in the world, I will make guest appearances and answer questions. HLC1 is a rare opportunity to take HLC1 training live at our beautiful Rainbow home atop of a mountain in Fallbrook, California with beautiful views, and you get to enjoy my amazing stone-charged water and work out in my beautiful gym. So if you want to learn from a true master in person and get your most important questions answered, don't miss this special opportunity. If you want to meet other holistically minded people and grow your conscious community, there is no better place than our live workshops. In this important, practical 3-day training program, you will learn how to apply the 1, 2, 3, 4 approach to developing long-term body-mind changes and how to apply the 5 essential program design factors. Learn to use your Chek nutrition and lifestyle questionnaires for assessing physiological load and making essential diet and lifestyle changes. Understand the relationship between the 6 Chek foundation principles and body-mind stress. Learn how to apply the 6 Chek foundation principles to balance your body systems so you can exemplify well-being. Identify common roadblocks to success with diet and lifestyle modifications and gain simple solutions. Discover how to use the less is more principle of exercise prescription. To learn more and register, go to chekinstitute.com/core. That's chekinstitute.com/core. I'm sure this will be a life-changing workshop for anybody that attends, and I look forward to seeing you all here at our beautiful home in Fallbrook, California. Enjoy.
HLC1 with Angie Chek will be held on May 30th to June 1st, 2025. To learn more and to register, go to chekinstitute.com/core. That's chekinstitute.com/CORE. Don't miss this only opportunity to take HLC1 live and in person with Angie this year.
Can we get a round of applause? Yes.
I spent, a lot of my adult life looking into these things because the more you learn and the more you know, the bigger your questions get. And if you're someone like me that hates cliffhangers, they pester me to the point that I get up at 3:30 in the morning to sit in the silence that I need to be with my soul, which is also the spirit, to say, show me what the hell is going on here, especially when you have books written by experts that completely contradict each other, but they're both highly qualified. And I got a library full of contradictions. And this is where Steiner says the reason for all the contradictions is to inspire you to bud the awareness soul, which grows when you ask, is it really true? So once you start asking, is it really true, and doing the work to find out, that's the metamorphosis of the awareness soul. And that takes you out of the matrix of indoctrination, because now you get to see what your soul is ready to show you about the truth of who and what you really are. And unfortunately, very few people have the discipline or the depth of curiosity to do that inner work. And one of the dangers is, like you've said many times, if you keep reading books, you get a lot of new age gobbledygook that sounds cool, but doesn't really tell you anything. And so most of the people that write spiritual books are just cutting and pasting everybody else's gobbledygook, but they haven't really penetrated themselves to ask, is it really true? But that's part of the test of spiritual evolution. Are you going to just copy everybody else's stuff and believe it? Or are you going to go deep enough into it to find the truth in yourself? And the reason you're here is because you've obviously done enough of that, which I looked through your information and spent time talking to you. I'm just putting words to what you're trying to say in a language that I can understand, and to try to add another dimension, because I know what you're saying. And sometimes, some of us have gifts, right? What God gave me is the ability to take advanced concepts and put them into images and words that most people can pick up and go, oh my God, now I see it. Part of the magic and the mystery is that you're able to convey and see things in a way that's unique to Mary. And then once Mary does what she's done, like you've got a bunch of beautiful diagrams that you sent me to show your own process and what you see. And as soon as I saw those diagrams, I recognized them, not because I'd seen them in a book before, but because I see these things myself. And as you said earlier, when you look into someone's energy field, if you're clairvoyant, there is so much that is in there. Unless you actually tune yourself to specific intention of what you're looking for, it can just look like an atom. An atom's just really a cloud of probabilities. So if you were to actually see an atom, you wouldn't see a geometrical structure. You'd see what looks like a cloud of energy spinning so fast that it just looks like a cloud. But here we are sitting next to a table, which is what our senses can pick up. But if I gave you about 10 grams of good mushrooms, when you looked at that table, you would see the cloud. It would look like just buzzing fireflies, tiny fireflies just moving at the speed of light. And that's when we know we're really having fun.
Well, and I like to say this too, because for the people who are, as we move through a collective awakening, a micro individual awakening, it's the ones before us who have paved the path for us to be able to open to these things. So thank you for your service, because it really, then that's kind of like in honor of the elders and the people who 20 years ago, this stuff was not what it's becoming now. It's becoming more common for us to have dialogue about this.
Yes.
And so I like to always say that too, for the people that trudged the path that goes against the status quo that came before us and have created these platforms and spaces for us to talk about it, is super important. And one of the things that you mentioned too about cymatics had me thinking, a lot of why I had to kind of dive into more frequency, scalar wave, 0 point understanding is because so many people's human energy fields were so dissonant. They were
Yes.
so out of whack. And one of the ways that I've described human energy fields is because it's like spheres within spheres. So sometimes the sphere that's more out of balance is the one that's the furthest out.
Right.
It's the layer that is protruding. It may have cuts, it may have perforations. When it comes to the spirit body, there's literal examples where people's spirit bodies can be putrefied. I'd see certain people, there's only been a couple examples of this, but death by 1,000 paper cuts through their thoughts, because these thoughts are projecting into their own field and creating a reality that they're resonating with.
Yeah.
And even if the thoughts, you can have somebody that comes in and they have a great life on paper, but they come in with this weight of heavy sadness and also self-abusive thinking that's deeply internal. No one else is hearing it or seeing it because they're covering it so well. And so it's a lot of this work is about the health and vibrancy of each of these layers, and they all have different textures. They have different modes of operating. And so people will come in with these clunky systems and they've got one sphere kind of hanging over here and then the other sphere here, and one sphere is really shrunken because in some, energy models or chakra models, as the spheres rise through our body, they expand, but sometimes somebody's spherical layout can be completely distorted or imbalanced. So if we can get ourselves to obviously address the physical body, which is what we have to kind of start with. It's the base, it's the foundation.
Yeah.
Clear it out.
The only challenge, and believe me, I know after 41 years of working with people, is that yes, we want to work with people's physical bodies, but unfortunately, a lot of people are so trapped in the chaos that you've just described that they can't bring themselves to do the work of even getting to bed on time, going for a walk. So though I typically start with the body, I find that there are cases where I have to work on, this is why in my system, getting clear on what your dream is or your goal is, because if you don't have something that gives you enough levity to overcome the inertia of your present state of being and the people that you share relationships with, then you can give people the simplest things to do, like just go to bed on time, drink more water, go for a walk. But they'll just come back and make excuses about why they didn't have time to do it. And I used to be always amazed that I'd have people on workman's compensation seeing me in my physical therapy clinic, and they're at home all day long. They're getting paid, they have no job, but they would always say, I didn't have time. So the work you're doing and the work that I have to do is I got to look inside and see where are these imbalances, where are these belief structures that are creating the disharmony that's stopping them from, healing and stepping into their authentic self. And so sometimes we have to start, you could say at the spiritual end or the mental end or the energetic end. And there's been many, many cases in my career, and I'll be curious to see how you handle this, that to do the mental work takes a lot of energy. And if a person doesn't have the energy and the discipline to just get to bed on time, eat real food, drink water, walk, things that anybody should be able to do, then I have to go to approaches that help harmonize their chakras, harmonize their energy fields. So for example, I often use tuning forks because I can really make a shift and use frequency to align these energy centers. Or I can use shamanic approaches such as rattling, drumming, Tibetan bowls. There's a lot of ways you can do it. You just have to know how to do it. And then I can actually get people to where all of a sudden they kind of awaken and they don't really realize what's happening. They just feel a lot better. And all of a sudden they're doing it. I'll give you a quick example. during the pandemic, there was family members that came to me or to visit us that were really in bad shape after the effect of the vaccines got a hold of them. And, dizzy, confused, depressed, just sort of lost in themselves. And, I make my living doing therapy. So the last thing I want to do when I have a little bit of time to myself is work on the many people that want me to work on them. So, but out of love and out of me seeing what you see inside of them and realizing if this person doesn't get some help, they're going to end up with a disease really fast, I would just go get out my tuning forks, because in 15 minutes, I can bring them into a completely different state. And every time I would do that, they would be like, oh my God, like, I feel so much better. I can think now. My balance is better. I can breathe better. And a good session like that could last a couple of weeks. If they do the same bad habits, it'll last a couple of weeks and it'll get weaker and weaker by the day. Then they're right back where they started, and they come and they say, please get out your tuning forks. And so I usually, you say, remember that book I gave you, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy? You really ought to try practicing that, because, I've harmonized you now. So now you'll have the energy to get involved and balance yourself. Anyhow, my only point is, I agree. It's great to start at the body, because that's what grounds us. And that's kind of like the base reality that you can deal with without having to confront challenging beliefs, traumas, issues. But sometimes you have to go to the other end, because you can't get the beliefs out of the way that are stopping them from taking care of the body. And sometimes both ends are just so, in a state of chaos. You have to come in with some kind of an organizing force and simple things that help. I don't know if you do this at all in your work, but just toning the sounds of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, because those things do is the root chakra, re second, as you surely are aware. Even looking at the colors of the rainbow and opening your heart and maybe saying a prayer and asking for help can bring you up. Just singing in the shower, singing in the car, singing any of the songs that feel good. One of the things that I found very powerful is if you find out the year somebody was born and have them listen to the top 40 songs from that year, the soul is very, very attuned to those songs, because that's what it was on the radio when the soul came into the world. So most people, not everybody, but most people got the most love in the first couple of years of their life when they were defenseless, right? Even lousy parents tend to be better parents when they're in the breastfeeding stage and the coddling stage. So I found that just telling people to listen to the top 40 hits, or the ones that they're most attracted to from the year they're born, has quite an amazing organizing effect on their energy field and their psyche.
If you have listened to even one episode of Paul's podcast before, then you will know that he is passionate, and some would say even fanatical, about the quality of the food he eats and where it is sourced from. That is why the Chek household only eats pasture-raised meat, wild-caught fish, and organic produce. And that is why we subscribe to Wild Pasture's meat delivery service. Each month, Wild Pastures delivers a box of meat that has been raised by family farmers in the USA using regenerative farming practices. 100% grass-fed and finished beef, pasture-raised chicken, and pasture-raised pork, as well as wild-caught seafood. You can customize the selection in your box, add on extra when you know you will be feeding more people, or change your options each and every month. You might be thinking that this will be too expensive for you, but Wild Pasture's mission is to offer the highest quality meat at the lowest prices, because they want to transform the meat industry. And that means that more people need to be able to choose meat that is raised right. Their pasture-raised animals are part of a natural ecosystem. Their farmers use rotational grazing, practices that mimic nature, and so do not need to use synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, hormones, or antibiotics. This beautiful process doesn't require the external resources, such as massive amounts of GMO grain, required with environmentally depleting conventional methods. And best of all, the meat and fish taste amazing. And for Paul's listeners, Wild Pastures are offering you 20% off your subscription for life, $15 off your first order, and free shipping. Seriously, you can't find a better deal for top quality pasture-raised meat. Go to wildpastures.com/Paul Chek. You don't need a promo code. Just visit wildpastures.com/Paul Chek and start choosing the goodies you will have delivered to you in your first box.
Oh, yeah. And I think one of the things that's interesting, and this gets a little deeper into how sessions can go,
Mm-hmm.
the mediumship is a big part of what I do, but I don't put that out in the front because whoever comes through for people is not up to me. I don't go out. They come through and communicate if they need to. And they give a lot of information on ancestral imprints
Mm-hmm.
and or a lot of other stuff, DNA information. And I say this because when meeting with individuals, it's their higher self that's doing the nonverbal communicating on behalf of the soul
Mm-hmm.
expression.
Yes.
And each person is incredibly different. Everybody's a different musical note in this big, song of life. And so when connecting with that aspect of them, if there's communication to that verbally, like translating the frequency that's being received from that higher aspect of them, usually there's a moment clairvoyantly where you can see a spark, like a light bulb will
Mm-hmm.
literally show. And it's because if people hear something from that frequency of truth, they can resonate to it if they have the hearing. And if not, the breath work is a big tool that I've
Mm-hmm.
used. I have
Yeah.
a session called a hybrid session where we do the first part where I connect through the nonverbal means. It's also we go back and forth too. So it's like I'm like, let me know what's resonating, what's not, what hit home, what really you heard from all of
Yes.
that. And then the second half is when they do the breath work. So it's like, okay, empty yourself of everything that was just talked about. You don't need to cling or remember anything. Let it all go. And we get into the practice where they can connect with their self. It's a 2-part breath pattern, and it's
Mm-hmm.
meant to create a soul merge. And the concept of self-love is really at the basis of all of it. And
Yes, has to be.
it's just another one of those terms, however, that I have found that's gotten it's watered down. Like if we make a word tree of love, it's a very deep word.
It's the basis of all creation.
Yeah. And like it's said all the time, but the intention behind it, everything's intention. The universe is constructed through intention and thought.
Mm-hmm.
And when I find that there's these levels of aggression that people are living with toward themselves, and the aggression is that expression of where they're disconnected. And I think when people are making the choice, which they don't think they're making the choice by making excuses,
Right.
they're like, they're in a lack consciousness. They're in a victim mentality. And the victim mentality and the lack consciousness is very tricky because especially when people have dealt with very real domestic violence, hardcore abuse, sexual abuse, it can be challenging to override the fact that they were victimized by something.
Yeah.
And
Strategy.
yeah, and I think that one of the first things that I started to see when my vision really was opening was the amount of sexual abuse.
Yes, it's quite shocking.
I mean, it was on all levels, like, incest or just with companies, other groups, like it with individuals, with males. And luckily now we're in a time where men are getting more comfortable and opening up about what they experience at a certain point. I can't tell you how many sessions I've had with men who are speaking for the first time about the thing that happened to them at a young age.
Yeah. Mary, we've covered a lot. We've covered your childhood development and the kind of the dark night of the soul crisis you went through. We kind of got a mix of concepts for your spiritual philosophy, and we have explored kind of your unique gifts as to how you see somebody, you know, when you look into them, and that you pick up the sounds, which I've found, by the way, is probably one of the least common voyances that people have. You get a lot of people with intuitive knowing. You get more people with vision than you do clairaudience. But the people that can hear, for example, the music of the spheres is very rare. And you have to have that ability to hear what you're hearing. I remember the first time I heard the music of the spheres, it shocked me. I was laying on the floor right over, I don't know if I was at my heaven house, and I started hearing this beautiful, beautiful music that sounded like St. Hildegard of Bingen's music. If you've ever heard that.
I love her.
Her music is amazing. Or like Hilary Stagg on the harp. And I'm like, what? I thought I had the stereo turned off. And I literally got up and the stereo was off. And I said to my soul, what am I hearing? And my soul said, you're hearing the music of the spheres. And it took me till I was in my 50s to get relaxed enough inside to hear it. And I realized in that experience how the buzz of the world and the constant incessant drive to pay our bills and kind of the pressures of the industrial life create so much tension inside of us that we get detached from the infinite beauty of all of creation and of God. So what I'd like to do now is just have you give us an encapsulation of what we've covered so far, so that for anybody that needs a little focus, you can kind of give us the bullet points of what are the gifts she brings to the table. And then I'd like to go into your Higher Mind Collective program and have you describe what exactly it is that people learn, you know, what's the experience they're going through. And we can finish with sort of the structure of your program and how they can get support. And we really need to know, who is this program ideally suited for? You know, because obviously it won't be everybody. I know my program, Spirit Gym, it requires a lot of commitment and discipline to do it. You have to be truly ready for legitimate spiritual development, not new age bubblegum bullshit. And so if a person hasn't reached a level where they're hungry for legitimate spiritual development and doing the work, a program like mine will be too much for them. They'll just say, oh, I don't want to do that, or I don't have time to do that. Why am I paying all this money? Well, the reality is you're paying the money to invest in yourself. So go stand in the mirror and you'll find out why you're not doing it, right? Mm-hmm. So point is, every program is tailored to somebody more than others. So we need to really, I want to know, for my own interest, who is your program for? So why don't you take it from the top?
It's really important for people to create a relationship with their intuition. It's their compass. And that's at the basis of what I am trying to teach and way show for, guide. Our inner child is the aspect that is joyful, playful, with rich imagination. So
Yes.
A lot of this life is a retrieval of that aspect.
Yes.
And then beyond that, with regard to ascension, awakening, is soul retrieval beyond the inner child aspect.
Yes.
And so if you are feeling lost, confused, in pain and suffering that is beyond what your understanding, your mental, intellectual understanding is, and you don't know where to go, this is meant to provide you deep clarity.
You mean your program?
The program, and also just my kind of philosophy,
Yes,
is to know thyself.
Yes.
In my direct experience with things, what's above or perceived to be above is also below. So what's within is also outside. And so whatever your life looks like right now is a reflection of your current manifestation, what you're currently creating. And if you're unhappy with that, this work is meant to guide you back into yourself and your intuitive compass so you can recreate or create the life that is aligned with your soul self.
Beautiful.
Honoring your truth or your true self, whatever it is you want to call it, your intuition. Everybody has different names for these things. Is, there can be challenges in this life to
Can be.
to keep to stay aligned. And
Yeah.
oftentimes, like as artists of this reality, we are all artists. When you really wake up to your soul's essence, it can take you directly against the status quo.
Amen.
And a lot of times people, that's where they kind of fall off, or like you said earlier, they just go right back to how they were living before, but that won't really last that long, because usually once your soul starts to waken, you'll start to suffer even more.
Yes.
Your awareness has already expanded enough to where these unconscious aspects that
Yeah.
are looking to be integrated will keep kind of rearing their ugly head.
Yeah, well, if you don't honor the call of the soul, that psycho-spiritual energy will come out what I call sideways, which could be a heart attack. It could be severe digestive disorders. It could be cognitive disorders. It can be outbursts of anger in relationships where you can't even believe what you just said or did. And so that's what I call the pain teacher showing up. And the soul is willing to go through any level of hell necessary to create as much pain as it takes to get you to face the mirror and get clear on, and that's why people like you and I are here, is to help people get clear and to help make meaning out of all this chaos and confusion. Because like you've said previously, a lot of people don't understand what's happening. And if they don't understand what's happening, then they're a real target for the medical system. And that can be the beginning of a slower trip through hell, but the fires can get quite hot.
Yes, for me, it's reestablishing our true sovereign nature.
Yes.
And that means your inner authority, your inner self that's far more intelligent than your intellectually driven mental self, has a way for you in this life that heavily programmed mental faculty may disagree with, not like, be scared of, be frightened of. Terror and fright are big things that I see within people when they're right on the edge of a breakthrough. And so it's really a matter of helping people navigate their process of awakening and understanding the multidimensional parts of it, because we are multidimensional.
We are very we're as multidimensional as God.
And, so some of these, let's say, lower dimensional aspects of ourself must be honored and understood by our higher, more compassionate, loving faculties. But if we never really learned how to find joy or cultivate a sense of self-love, which I find very few people have, there's also the beginning process of establishing and finding joy in your life.
Yes.
Retrieving humor, which is a great alchemist when things get intense and heavy, because intensity and heaviness can be a part of the dark night experience.
Yes.
And that is where a lot of people fall into the trap of addiction.
Yeah.
Because there's so much pain with the intensity of what they're feeling and they need relief. And so they go to something that will give them immediate relief. And because that immediate relief feels so much better than what they were white knuckling before, they'll spiral into that. So there's a multitude of ways that you can kind of unfurl and go. And so this is a matter of creating structure and organization to this completely nonlinear process.
Yeah.
What's the shadow work that I need to do, which is typically where people have to start. And once you get to know what the textures of those aspects of yourself are trying to communicate to you, usually through archetype, you can start to work with them because you at least have an idea of what they are. So there's the wounded healer, there's the victim,
saboteur, prostitute.
Yeah.
Various derivations of the broken child.
Mm-hmm.
eternal child,
Mm-hmm.
et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And I think I see a lot of, so people talk about lack consciousness and victim consciousness
Yeah.
all the time. They're two totally different things, but they blend together. With lack consciousness, that's like, I can't be abundant,
Right.
which is completely opposite of what source creator, your true essence, wants for you.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to switch our beliefs and our thought patterns in order to get some momentum into moving into a more abundant stream of life.
Yes.
An example of an abundant stream is gratitude.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Like this life, and that can even go down to, if you want to emerge out of victim consciousness, reframing your perception on the pain teachers, your pain teachers,
Mm-hmm.
the main things that are creating your suffering as gifts.
Yeah.
They are the gifts, the base metals that you as the alchemist are meant to turn to gold, but many people don't really know they don't know they're an alchemist. They don't know that part of their human vessel is to transduce, which is you can't destroy energy, but you can change it.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you've probably heard Paul raving about one of his absolute go-to supplements, P3OM from Bioptimizers. Well, they've given it a new name, Probiotic Breakthrough. It's the same amazing formulation, just with a new name. Here's a chat that Paul and Wayne had about Probiotic Breakthrough before it changed its name.
You know, Bioptimizers makes an amazing product called P3OM, which is a prebiotic product. And it's amazing for not only helping repopulate the gut with friendly bacteria, but as Wade will tell you, it's really, really an amazing product in case you ever feel like you're getting any kind of food poisoning or illness coming on. And Wade's right here with me, and he's the co-founder of Bioptimizers, and he knows more about P3OM than anybody. But I can tell you this, I've had nothing but excellent results and nothing but positive feedback from all my clients and friends that I've turned on to P3OM. So Wade, tell us a little bit about P3OM and why it works so well.
Well, P3M we call it the Navy SEAL of probiotics.
Amen.
Basically, its job is to kick out the bad guys in your body. Food poisoning is one of those things from bad bacteria. What we've done is we've taken an aggressive strain of L. plantarum. We put it into toxic soup, ran a sine wave to keep a few of them alive. And the few survivors we grow in very specialized medium to make a cultured, patented enzyme that has extraordinary powers. Number one, it survives the intestinal tract.
Yes.
And number two, it absolutely hunts down pathogens in the body, bacteria, viruses, these type of things. And this is really where the future of probiotics is. It is about developing and culturing and creating super strains of probiotic, very much like the Navy SEALs go through a training, and these individuals have extraordinary powers to deal with chaos. And in today's world where we want to improve our immunity and our function and our gut health, P3OM is head and shoulders above any probiotic out there.
So my understanding is it can be used daily as a supplement, but it can also be used in larger quantities as a defense measure.
We've tested this literally with over 100 of our friends who have been suffering from various times of food poisoning. And a handful of those guys, when you're in food poisoning, and within 20 to 30 minutes, you complete recovery.
That's awesome. And I've seen it happen myself. Angie has felt bad a number of times, and several of people in the house or family have. And I say, take 10. If that doesn't feel good in an hour, take 20. And you've told me you can't overdose on them, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's the beauty of P3OM. You can't take too much. They'll fight off the bad guys, and they'll get your digestion rocking and rolling the way it should.
So if you want to have a healthy gut and you want some defense, carry P3OM with you wherever you go, airplanes, cars, business meetings, hotels, conferences, and you've got your Navy SEALs in the bottle, and they're ready for you anytime. Wade, how do we get a hold of your amazing P3OM product?
Super easy. Just go to www.bioptimizers.com/living4D and put in Paul10 for your 10% discount code. That's BIOPTIMIZERS.com/living4D and Paul10 for your discount code.
You got it. There you go. Try it. You'll love it. I use them. I can't tell you enough how much I love this product. I think it's a genius product, and you've heard it right from the master himself. Get your P3OM. Let us know how you feel about it. Lots of love. One thing I wanted to just interject. One of the most important aspects I know from my work, because Chek professionals go through this crisis quite early in their training, but community is the cradle that holds people. Because when you're with other people that are in the same or similar situations, you realize you're not alone. It's not like, God, I'm bad, damaged goods, all the kind of judgments that people will throw at themselves. But then they can hold hands with other people and dissipate the stress through the circle. And each of them often, and then realizes they've got gifts, because somebody might be saying, oh, I'm going through this, or I'm not in love with my husband anymore. He doesn't get me. And someone else can, out of the blue, who doesn't even know they have this ability in them, say something that just helps center them right up and gives them a magic solution. They go home, try it, and all of a sudden they're reconnected again. So I think knowing that you get to go through this training that you have, but there's also community that you've created, is really critical, because it's kind of like AA. If you were to go to an AA group and you were the only one there, it wouldn't work, because you don't have the support of the other people. But what makes AA and groups like that work is that you have each other to hold on to and to lean on. And that's, like there's no such thing as a tent with one pole, right? All the poles hold the tent together, and they lean on the central pole in a typical Native American style tent. And that's you, the instructor. So you hold the axle of their becoming, and they're revolving around you for that stability, that clarity, that source of inspiration, guidance, getting questions answered, and growing out of themselves with the support that you bring. So I'd love to hear, how is your program structured? What are the kinds of things that they learn in the lessons? Take us on a journey into what a prospective student of yours can expect.
So yeah, we've talked about a lot of fancy, terms early on in our conversation. And so this program really breaks these concepts down. So we start at the base energy center, or chakra more commonly, as people more commonly know it as, and then we go up the ladder of our body.
Good.
Each of these energy centers has their own consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And like we talked about earlier, if your energy is trapped in one of those lower centers, that's where your consciousness is at. And that's where you're struggling to penetrate out of.
Mm-hmm.
And we have people that struggle with emotional looping, where they get caught in the feeling and the trauma and the drama and the chaos. And then we have people that are more on the mindset part, where they may be stuck more in the mental aspect and they're not connected to the feeling. So that's the polar end. So we talk, as we go up, we get to the kind of the mechanics of these energy centers, which we have the more central aspect of the energy center, which is connected to the more soul-oriented aspect of that dimension. And then the outer part, which is more connected to the third dimension, earth. How can I make practical changes to my day-to-day to have this energy center flow easier, so that I can move up my own internal ladder of life and allow my soul to move and flow more thoroughly through me, so that I can resonate at a space of coherence and ease.
Mm-hmm.
I talk a lot about, some of the natural laws of the universe and how they apply to the different energy centers. So like law of cause and effect, being more around karma. What we do has an effect. It has a blowback.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't realize that they are creators.
Oh, yeah.
So we go into those natural laws so that you can become more attuned ultimately to the subtle realm.
Mm-hmm.
And when you become more subtly attuned, you become more aware of what might be blocking you, what relationship isn't serving you, if this job isn't serving you. And if people are more trapped and stuck, they are given guidance on how to move out of that trapped space where they may not want to leave the relationship or want to leave the job or take the leap to be a practitioner. I see that a lot because a lot of people who are drawn to my work are empathic. They're highly sensitive. They know they have gifts, but they have no idea how to apply it into the world. And then in each week, there's a guided breathwork practice that's specific to that energy center. And I recommend for people to do it every single day. And there's also a guided meditation video as well. So you have two practices that you can do what you want with it because it's 10 weeks and it's self-led.
Yeah.
But someone may take much longer.
Sure. Yeah.
I have a group right now of about 20 people who are in the program. And the feedback I've been getting from a couple of the people is that one woman, she's like, I've just been extremely emotional going through this first week.
Right.
And I'm like, allow that emotion to cleanse through you. The emotion in tears is the water, the spirit purifying you specifically. And if you feel like there's sadness and grief that you don't even understand coming out of you, let that go and do the breathing and the guided meditations to support you through that and keep moving through the lessons. If you feel like you get through a lesson that is hard to grasp or it really hits home, there can be either or. Listen to it as many times as you want.
Yeah.
Because the more you listen to each lesson, the more you'll hear.
Yeah. The more you embody it, it starts to resonate inside of you.
Yes, because it's really, it's beyond what I'm verbally saying in these things. It's really, I'm asking people to connect with the frequency, which again, people are like, I don't know how to do that. What does that even mean? This begins to show you because you start to feel something as you resonate with what the teaching is, with the breath practice, because I talk during the guided meditations and the breathing to get you to understand and hear and connect with these kind of ethereal, vibrational aspects,
subtle energies.
And then I do have my community called Sphere. So that is, you can sign up with that in conjunction with your move through the program, because the program you go through that on your own.
Right.
You sign up and you work with yourself through it. I find that the people who have more resistance or control stuff take longer.
Well, maybe they need to.
And maybe they need to. There's no, I always say to people when they're signing up, I have no judgment or idea of how you should move through this. But if you're finding yourself stuck or you go through the first week and then you just let the course sit, that within itself is your personal teaching. The people that are in my program right now are pretty hungry for growth and they're pretty well on their journey. That does not mean that if you're a complete beginner that this isn't for you, because of the way that this, self-development, spiritual, whatever you want to call it, space is. Yeah. A lot of people can look at things and say, oh, I'm not there yet, or that's too advanced. But I find that there's some people who come in for a session and they're much more advanced than people who have been trying really hard for years. Because I have also found that there's direction for people to do less $10,000 retreats at this thing.
Yes.
Or
that can become an addiction.
Yeah. Or do less plant medicine journeys or whatever, or do less because they're using those things as an addiction or distraction. So it helps with you to develop discernment for what feels good for you, and to just feel into my energy. If listening to this, you feel like there's a resonance and you don't understand why, trust that. If you feel like you're not sure and it doesn't feel good, then trust that.
And if a person needs more personal support from you or the group, is that the Sphere group that they can join?
Yes. The Sphere community has, I drip out videos on an intuitive basis, but it's every week. So each video is kind of like a transmission, you can say, for the collective or individual. And it's a great kind of add-on to the program because a lot of it is activating. I also run my Sphere community intuitively. So I don't make any stark promises of, okay, we get 4 calls a month, but it is 2 to 4 calls. Okay. But you'll get notified each week It's completely up to you if you want to join. And that's where you can ask questions.
And they're recorded so people can watch them at any time.
Yeah. And then I also have one-on-one sessions.
And then if someone wants a one-on-one with you, they hire that just like they would hire you as a therapist type thing.
Yes.
So how often do you find that people end up needing your one-on-one attention to process what's going through them in the training program that's self-paced?
It's varied because I've worked with a lot of people the last few years. So there's some people that are a little bit more in the consciousness that they need more help.
Yeah.
And I can find that I have a couple people in the community now who still book with me once a month for a one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm transitioning out of the one-on-ones into more teaching on a broader level.
Right.
I'm drawn to more guiding groups.
Yes.
And having people do their work with themselves and the content.
If you're withdrawing from one-on-one sessions, if I'm going through your self-guided thing and maybe something's rising up in me that's stressful or scary, if you're not doing the one-on-ones, can I go into the sphere group and share what's going on with me and maybe get the support of others that are in the group, or ask you when you do the calls, Mary, this is what's happening. What do I do?
Yes. With the sphere community calls, we start with a centering practice and a meditation. And so we get into a specific state.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I do the same.
And then if people want to drop in questions, I'm finding that with those community groups, people ask questions that are a little bit more session oriented.
Yeah.
So they want more of the, what are you seeing? What are you seeing in me that I'm not seeing?
Yeah, I don't know about you, but even though I have those abilities, I find that once you start doing that, then everybody seems to want that. And it becomes a Mary, fix me, tell me what's wrong, tell me what to do. So I always let my soul tell me when I should use those abilities and when not to, because I found that the people that really need to focus and discipline on doing the work themselves, be it working through their pain or doing the exercises in the lessons, tend to want to be on the hind tit all the time. Yeah. And so one of my rules is don't ask me a question that you have not already made an honest attempt to get the answer from your own soul, or I just become your mommy or daddy figure and then you stay stuck in the child archetype.
Yeah. And I'm really clear on the calls. This is not a session. So if you have an inquiry, have it be related to this program, a specific lesson, what you might be moving through. And if there's something in there, like you said, if my soul is, if there's something that is like a golden nugget that can assist them, I will provide that, but they're not meant to be sessions. If someone wants a one-on-one session, they will be able to book that. I'm not going to close down my books until I'm ready to do that, but I'm transitioning out of doing only one-on-one sessions, which I've done for a long time.
If you could kind of really give us a good example of the type of person that's ready for this training, how do the people listening know that they have the indicators that this is the right kind of training for me?
If you have any type of pull within you that feels like it's drawing you toward this, that's enough. Mm-hmm. I personally feel that this course, sessions with me or the community, are for anybody. I often hear, like, a lot of the people that signed up for this last round, there were at least 6 of them that were like, I don't even know why I signed up, but I just know that when I listened to your marketing material and heard about what you were releasing, that I needed to sign up.
Right. That's the soul talking. They're just, like you said, the pull. What I tell my students in most of my training programs is, now is a very good time to do the work to put a north on your compass. Mm-hmm. Because if you're in the world as it is right now and you have no north, you are lost And when the shit hits the fan, whatever it might be, another pandemic or any of the crap that's going on, the devil's out there having his fun. Without a north on your compass, you're going to fall into fear, and you're likely to fall into sheep herd mentality. That's how people end up losing their freedoms. That's how people lose their sovereignty. So it seems to me like what you're really doing is very much what I'm doing, is helping people gain the inner clarity and sense of authentic self, to know who they are, what they want, and have the willingness to go create it for themselves so that they're actualized. They're not just wandering around fitting into the sick, lost people.
Yes.
And also getting some spiritual education.
Yes. And I mean, the program too, everybody has, usually if I see somebody, the communication of their primary gift or their primary clair is there. So this program can help you develop further these gifts that are already there.
Oh, good.
Oftentimes without your knowing, which is better, because you don't need to none of this is mental or intellectual.
Mm-hmm.
It's like some stuff starts to activate and turn on, and then you start to experience how that other frequency works. And you're like, oh, wow, I have a reference point for how to let go because something else is arising. And I just need to allow it to continue to do so.
And in the lessons, are they being given education on, how these things might manifest and how to handle them so it's not such a shock for them?
Yes, I'd say the process, even with my one-on-one sessions, it's very organic and gentle. I'm not I don't push people into waters they're not ready to go into. It's very much walking side by side versus like pushing them in the deep end.
Yeah.
So you have you are given permission throughout the process. You're the one who's deciding how deep or not deep you go.
Right. Could a person hire you for an hour just to do an interview with you so you could kind of identify, are they ready for this, or help them identify what parts of the course might be what they need the most or anything like that?
Yeah, I've had this question, and I've had people I just have people book sessions for that. Regardless of whether it's for the program or just for life, you're going to get the same clarity through the session. So my website is marybuckingham.com. That's where you'll be able to sign up for the program, the community, and one-on-ones. And it's easy. You can see right when you get there. If you follow me on social media as well, it's my name, Mary Buckingham, with 2 underscores. That's where I have, 2 underscores behind my name. That's where I also just have, immediate updates of what's going on. I have events where I travel, and I have corporate stuff that I do. I have people that I work with who hire me more on a one-on-one mentorship basis. That's where you can send me an email if you want to do something beyond just a one-on-one session. If you have something where you're like, I want to work with you more intimately for a longer period of time, I can work with people on that, but it just depends on who the person is.
Is that because they want to become healers or guides, or for their own healing, or all of it?
All of it. I've had corporate executives who have hired me for a period of time to help with their leadership within their community. But I always make it clear I'm coming from a strictly spiritual lens. So if you want your community, your company to have more of a spiritual balance, I can help you with that, because where I'm coming from is from the spirit space.
Yeah.
So you can always just email me with any other additional inquiries around that, because I do also do breathwork groups. And so I've been doing that for years. That's just like a fun part of what I do. So my email is experiencewithmary@gmail.com. If you have an inquiry if you're like, I didn't really feel like I heard what you do with this or this, is this something you're interested in, or is this something you're available for? Just send me an email, and we can figure out where we can work together.
Hi guys, what do you reach for when you want a little pickup? When you want a little happy making? There's lots of things that I used to love. For example, I used to love my espresso in the afternoon, but that caused me lots of problems. So I had to retool that one. There's a lot of things that have sugar in them, but my body hates that. If you want to be healthy and you want to be clean, there's not much you can do. But Organifi's got some new happy drops that, believe me, are really good. And they're simple. They've got passion flower, go-to cola, organic saffron, and ginger root extract. And these things are awesome. You put a couple in your mouth. I like to suck them and let them melt down slow. And in a few seconds, you are feeling happy again with a little mood elevation and a little energy lift too. I absolutely love these things. My kids love them. And the thing I love about them is they make me feel good without doing anything but good for me. So if you want to get some happy drops, go ahead and try these. You're going to be amazed. I absolutely love these things, and my kids love them too. And I know you're going to love them. And you don't have to feel guilty about it because there's nothing in there that's bad for you at all. Far better than an addictive anything, and great for you. Try Organifi's Happy Drops.
To try Organifi's new Happy Drops and to get 20% off your order, go to Organifi.com/Chek20 and use the promo code Chek20 at checkout. That's Organifi.com/Chek20. Organifi.com/CHEK20. And the promo code is CHEK20 for a 20% discount.
Beautiful. So I'll give you my summary of what I gained today from this podcast, and that is that Mary began her life with spiritual gifts, that the developmental environment made it hard for her to stay engaged in, which led her to a crisis, a spiritual crisis of self, sometimes called the dark night of the soul. She broke through, found herself, and in allowing the inner child to step forth and regain those gifts and master them and continue to develop them, grew to the point where she had the ability to help others going through that transformation process, which ultimately led her to the realization that there's enough people in the world that need this help, that she put together a self-guided online training program with a sphere group within which you can grow in a community environment. And Mary now also is available for private mentorship, coaching, therapy to help you put the North Star on your compass and become the person you came to the world to be. How did I do?
You did great. I'll say too, I know I mentioned that I'm moving away from the one-on-one, but that's going to be available for however long it needs to be available. So if some people aren't ready to be in a community space, or they're dealing with really heavy stuff that they want more one-on-one mentorship because of the privacy of the issue. So that's perfectly fine. If you feel like you do want to be a part of the program, but you don't feel ready, then just book the one-on-one.
Great. What an interesting journey, and a nice sort of trip through an often hidden reality in the world that, as we said earlier in the podcast, leads to a lot of people on drugs for managing psychological issues that really aren't issues. They're just symptoms of spiritual evolution and a lack of support and a lack of education amongst the medical system and amongst our culture. And what a great thing to know that there's a container for people and a source of education to help them not only work through it and understand it, but often find that they have something to offer other people. And that once you can kind of break through the cocoon of the crisis or the awakening or the reemergence of the inner child, you can really use the gifts that your soul has brought you to help other people and really get to make love every day, knowing that you're doing something that not only really you enjoy doing and feel a sense of purpose of, but's helping people. And I think that's really important today. And I think also, probably around your generation, I think a lot of souls begin coming into the world, coming to do this work, and can get kind of caught in the developmental crisis and trauma. But interestingly enough, that turns out to be the pressure cooker that they need to go in to bring them to having a reason to get themselves out of pain and get some clarity in the life, which turns out to be what lets the lid off the pressure cooker. And they go, oh my God, now I know why I had to go through this.
Oh, yeah.
And so what starts off as chaotic and traumatic shapes itself into meaning making and really finding one's soul. And so I think a program like yours is really important, because I know that since about the time you were born, I've seen more and more souls coming in with a deep core spiritual intelligence that paradoxically is their gift, but sets them so apart from everybody else that it can make quite a struggle out of being themselves. But there hasn't been many teachers or programs around to sort of help heal these broken healers, right? And the best healer is always the wounded healer. But if you go to the wrong doctor, you just get a reinforcement of your path. But if you go to a soul healer like yourself, then you can actually realize this is exactly, like Rumi says, the function of a broken heart is to let your love pour out. If you just focus on the broken heart, not the love, then you're just a broken heart. But if you, like you say, find gratitude and look for the grace in it all, then your love pours out and changes the world. So what a great journey. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. And I just want to add, Dolores Cannon did mention the waves of volunteers, just to what you were saying.
Yes.
So the Indigo children, they go like the 1970s to the 1990s is the second wave.
Star children.
And then the third wave is kind of the age group that I'm in. It's the 1990s later.
Mm-hmm.
It's the crystal children. So a lot of people too who are drawn to this are feeling radically different and off stream and like what's going on. And we all have a place because we're meant to bring cosmic consciousness to help with the ascension of our planet.
What are the current wave of children called that are coming in, if there's a name for them? Because
rainbow children.
Oh, rainbow.
From my understanding.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Because
Vermana.
Both of my kids, I met with their souls as soon as Angie realized she was pregnant, or shortly thereafter, and they both stated without a shadow of a doubt that they know what's going on in the world, and that they each have unique skill sets that are going to be needed, and that they chose us as their parents to reactivate their knowledge and give them the foundation training they need to navigate the world, so that when their gifts come online, they have the structure and the support to navigate the matrix that they're coming into.
Yeah, they're like said to be system builders.
Yes, and like Mana's an engineer mind for sure, and Zoe's just full on witch. You don't want to play cards with her. She doesn't even have to turn them over. She knows what's under every card. Yeah. It's crazy to watch. It trips me out. But it's amazing because, like we just had Mana's 9th birthday party, and they go to a Waldorf school, and I'm able to read energy fields and really pick up the essence. And a lot of these kids that are in Waldorf schools especially are very gifted, and a lot of them don't know it yet. Sometimes the parents do. But there's a wave of kids coming in right now that are quite unique souls. And it's really cool for me to see this happening.
I mean, it's interesting you say this. I was thinking about this on the way here. When I really started to look for the right teachers in the beginning, they help kind of guide me to certain spaces and communities. And some of my peers right now who were born around the same time and who are connecting with similar energies, we all have very similar missions that are very unique and different. But as they keep kind of expressing in their unique gifts and what they're doing, it's a little shocking in a way because it's very different than what's been going on, but it's meant to disrupt the current systems that are not working and to awaken people to the fact that it's like, hello, there's something going on. We need to all kind of wake up to it, pay attention.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Well, it just goes to show you that the medicine always comes with the pain. You know, it's always there, and Great Spirit's always balancing itself out, leading to its own awakening, which is, what everybody is doing. So I'll say thank you guys for joining us. I hope you found this educational, informative, and inspiring. And I think those of you that are ready for Mary's training know who you are. You'll have heard the call. I'm sure the sound of her beautiful voice will resonate with you. And thank you to my sponsors for your amazing products and all the love you put into funding organic and biodynamic and free-range farmers and providing not only money for them, but healing the planet and feeding us amazing food and products and supplements to help us, take care of ourselves. And thank you for anything you buy from the sponsors that supports the podcast. So it's a win-win-win, which is 3 times better than a win. And I look forward to sharing more with you in a week. And thank you guys for being the change the world needs now. Lots of love. See you next time. Mary, once again, thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Oh, Great Spirit. It is done. It is done. It is done. Woo!
Woo!
Thank you for listening to Spirit Gym with Paul Chek and today's guest, Mary Buckingham. Visit Mary's website at marybuckingham.com and connect with her on Instagram at marybuckingham__. That's Mary Buckingham with 2 underscores at the end. You can also email her directly at experiencewithmary@gmail.com. Mary's course, Higher Mind Collective, is designed to access your higher faculties. The course includes a month of complimentary access to her online community called Sphere. Within Sphere, there are weekly videos uploaded, which include transmissions from Mary, guest speakers, and guided content to support and activate you on your spiritual journey. Make sure you mention that you heard Mary on Spirit Gym with Paul Chek when you register. We also invite you to check out Paul's Spirit Gym program and community, where you can share ideas and ask questions about topics discussed in this podcast. Memberships start from less than $8 a month, and you can get access to exclusive members-only opportunities from Paul's guests, live Q&A sessions with Paul and his guests, including an upcoming call with Mary herself, access to the podcast members forum within the Spirit Gym community, where you can interact with other passionate listeners, and the chance to purchase exclusive Spirit Gym merchandise. You can subscribe today by going to paulchek.com/podcast. or explore the higher levels of membership at myspiritgym.com. And finally, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and a warm review on the podcast platform of your choice. This podcast is available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, and YouTube.